Okay, good. So, right now I am going to share my screen. I have started recording a meeting, and then we're going to start discussing where we left off. We did the we finished the chapter. We were doing the questions for that chapter. We're going to overview the questions, the pattern. I'm not going to make you write anything as of right now because again, your paper, the topics that will be included in your paper are still yet to do. So we will start practicing once we have covered those topics, at least some of them. So right. So for now. Okay, so this is where we stopped a chapter. We looked at, I think, this four marker as well. So when you look at this particular four marker, the last thing that you have done, the chapter, what it was about was research methods, all the things that you use in order to conduct a research. So again, we looked at this question. So what right now the question, the material for the question is not important. What's really important is how many marks it is for and how what mark pattern you actually follow. So if you look at the question which says identify and explain one advantage of using a questionnaire to research parents' attitude towards education. Now in this four marker, what you will basically be talk about is that you're going to give one, as I explained to you, you're going to get 1 mark for identifying, you're going to get 1 mark for explaining, and then you're going to get 2 marks for relating it to this particular example that they've given, which was parents' attitude towards education. This is something that we have discussed and it is in the Google document. Moving ahead, if you look at 12 markers, so this is what also they've given us an answer. So questionnaires are, these are basically 3 different answers. This is not just one answer, right? So questionnaires are a relatively cost-effective way of reaching large number of parents. That is them identifying the advantage. Now they will explain the advantage. It would not be correct to describe questionnaires as cheap, as they are not. So they are certainly not as expensive as large-scale interview-based research projects. Questionnaires are also a reliable research tool. The data produced can be expressed in numbers that reveals patterns and trends. Our example are middle class parents more positive about education than working class parents. Identification done over here, that gets them the 1 mark. Then the explanation, where they're talking about, yes, it's not necessarily cheap, but it's relatively cheaper, and that it is easy to analyze and easy to look at. And then we have the last thing, which is relating to the example of parents. So they have given us a question which ultimately makes us relate to that particular example that they're talking about. Right. Another thing that they've given us is questionnaires can be useful if you are trying to gain access to people who are not usually available during normal working hours. Many school-age children will come from homes where both parents are in full-time employment. They're basically giving more examples, and now these are examples that are relating to the example that has been given in the question, which, if I go back to, is attitudes of parents towards education. So parents' attitude. Now they're talking about all sorts of parents. So they're just relating to the situation and teaching how to relate to the situation. Are we clear till here?
Yes.
Okay. So now this is one of the most important things that we will need to cover when we are talking about past paper questions. That is basically a 12 marker, which is called a mini essay, right? So why is it most difficult? Because you know how in English we're discussing in argumentatives, you have to give both sides. So similarly over here as well, whatever question you have, you will have to evaluate it. So it means you will have to give the strengths and weaknesses. So they will either ask you to discuss it or they will ask you to evaluate it, which basically means that you have to give both sides and then express your own opinion. So it is a very literature sort of an answer that you have to give. You have to follow the pattern, which I will explain to you in detail, and I will make you write it down as well. But it is basically the pattern of PEE, which is point, explanation, evidence, and maybe a link. So it can be PEEL or it's going to be PEE, which is P. So P as in point, which where you just identify a pointer that you're giving, that could be for or against, that could be a strength or a weakness. Explanation is explaining that pointer. Why are you giving that particular pointer? How is it a strength or how is it a weakness? And then the last thing is evidence, which is basically quoting a sociologist. So you will have to mention the sociologist that talks about that particular thing, or a sociologist that any theory, any study that actually talked about that. Or if you cannot find a sociologist or anything in that relation, then you will give an example which will always work, or you will relate to the example that is given in the question. This idea will become more clear when you start practicing them, but right now we're just overviewing it. So essay questions will ask you to discuss how far sociologists would agree with the particular statement. You will be given credit by the examiner for demonstrating a relevant understanding of research methods and methodological issues. Now, your 12 marker, because I said that they are discuss or evaluate, this is where this chapter is tested. This is exact, because when you open your past papers, there the first paper is family education, the second paper is crime deviance, right? So your research methods are basically hidden in questions such as these. Your methodological research, which we've done just now, this is like a basic chapter that you will need to know for each of the next chapters that you do. And this is more important. Why? Because your 12 marker will always require for you to know the information in this chapter. So over here, they're talking about discuss how far sociologists will agree that Britain is a meritocratic society. Now, you have to say, yes, Britain is a meritocratic society, at least 3 pointers of that or 2 pointers of that. And then, no, Britain is not a meritocratic society. So yes or no for that as well. And then once you are done giving both sides, then you will basically present your point of view, your opinion, which is going to be your conclusion. But how will you write the points for each of the side? That is basically the tricky part. You won't just go that Britain is not a meritocratic society because their school system does not reward meritocracy, or their school system does not reward merit. And then this is it. This is my point. Now I'm going to move on to the next point. It's not like that. So the real deal lies with how you construct your point, how you present your point of view. So if I am writing this particular point, I'm going to write Britain is not a meritocratic society because their education system does not reward students on merit. That's just my point. I will start explaining it. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to say that students in Britain are rewarded on the basis of talent and practical abilities rather than academic success. That's my explanation. An example of this is etc., etc., etc. This is going to be a developed pointer when I start writing this my answer. Right now, we don't really need to know any of this. You should just know what all we have to what all or how we are going to look at the past paper questions. So this is it for now for the mini essay. Once we start writing it, that then it's going to make more sense, and that is basically the more important part. Are we clear till here?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to start a new chapter with you today, which is families. Okay, it's a very important chapter. It's one of the chapters that is very clearly tested in your paper one. It is the first section. Your whole first section is this particular chapter, which is the sociology of families. So if I take you back to our introduction, when we were discussing society, we discussed the functionalist point of view. And we talked about the functionalist point of view by saying that functionalists say that everything is amazing. And the other thing, in more depth, what they say is that you need all of the social agencies in order for the society to run smoothly. And one of those social agencies that you require in order for society to run smoothly is your family. Okay, so that is basically it. We are going to look at family as a social agency. We won't just look at family as generally how we look at family as something that's as people who live together, but beyond that, we will look at family as a social agency that helps in socialization, that helps in social control, that builds up a society. So we will look at the viewpoint or the importance of family in a society. So right. So the first thing over here is functions of the family, the functionalist perspective. So as I said, that the functionalist said that all of the social agencies are equally important when you talk about the smooth running of a society, be it any society whatsoever. It could be any society, but what functionalists say is that all the social agencies are important, be it good, be it bad, whatever they're teaching you. For particular reasons, all of them are important. So now we're going to look at how functionalists think that the family is a very important social agency. There are different viewpoints from which sociologists examine society. This is the case when looking at the functions of the family. Different sociologists have different views on nature and role of family. These reflect by differing ideas. Functionalists, Marxists, and feminists explain the functions of family. So basically, we are going to look at family from the eyes of all three functionalist, Marxist, and feminist, but most importantly, functionalist, because that is considered to be an ideal situation for families. So whatever the functionalists say that the families should do, or the families do in order for the society to grow, all of that matters, because that is basically remembering that yes, it is this is what an ideal family should be like. That is the image that the functionalists will promote. So first we're going to look at the key terms. The first one is dysfunctional family. So that is basically a family which does not meet society's needs in socializing children and supporting adults. This may be a family in which conflict, neglect, and even abuse are common experiences. So dysfunctional family is a disturbed family. It's a family who is not functioning smoothly. They are facing some issues. It could be abuse. It could be patriarchy. It could be marginalization. It could be a shaming one another. So it could be anything, but this particular sort of family is not functioning properly. They are disturbed. They have issues. Expressive role is the role where you are more passive, where you are more caring, and that is basically associated with mothers. That mothers are supposed to play a more expressive role. They are supposed to play a more passive role, where they should care about the whole family. Compared to, we have instrumental role, which basically means to have an assertive role, to have an aggressive role, which basically a stern role where you're strict, which is basically complied with dads and fathers, that they are the ones who are aggressive and assertive, and they are the bread provider. They are the male of the family, the alpha of the family. Also, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay, great. Right. So this is the key terms, where now we're going to look at the functionalist perspective of family. So for many years, the sociology of the family was dominated by the functionalist theory. Functionalists always ask about the purpose or function of an institution. What good does the institution do for society and individuals? So like it says over here, functionalists will always question a social agency in the sense that what good does it do to society? How does it help society in the smooth running of society? So functionalists are interested in identifying the positive functions of a family for society. They view family as the cornerstone of every society, because it plays a dominant role among all social institutes and making individuals feel like a part of the wider society through primary socialization. Functionalists see the nuclear family as beneficial and necessary for the smooth running of society and the personal development of individuals. Two key functionalists were George Murdock and Talcott Parsons. Now, what functions basically say is that family is the most important part of each and every society. Like they've said over here, it is the cornerstone of each and every society, which means it plays the most integral role. It keeps the society going in every, and it helps in the build up of every other institute. What that means is that if a person is from within a family, wherever they go, they will take the values of the family with them. So while they go to the workplace, they will behave exactly like they have learned in the family. If they go to school, they will also behave exactly like they have in the family. So it basically depends all upon the family, and it is from the family that they basically grow into other social institutions. That's what functionalists have said. When you look at family from a functionalist perspective, family has one major role. It generally it has two, but from the functionalist perspective, the one thing you will always look at is family has the role of primary socialization. Now also the roles of the role of family from functionalist perspective is something that will be explained through Murdock's and Talcott Parsons studies. Okay, but right now what we need to know before we enter in that world is that family's main function, according to functionalists and generally as well, is primary socialization, which basically means from the ages of 0 to 7, or from the ages from 0 to 4, till the child is going to school, or till the child is mingling or interacting or associating themselves with another entity or another person. The child stays within the family, and that is the child's primary years. And in those years happens primary socialization, which is learning from people that are around you, learning from the family. That is known to be primary socialization. So according to the functionalists, the main part of family is to conduct primary socialization, which is basically teaching an individual the values, the norms, the language, the ways to behave, the rules and the regulations of society while they are at home, and every individual, the first connection an individual has is from family. So hence family is the one integrating all of these things in an individual, and that is its main function. Other functions are something that George Murdock and Talcott Parsons have explained through their studies. Right. So we're going to look at these two studies and we are going to remember these names by heart because you will need them throughout, especially with the topic of family, especially with anything that is to do with anything that is to do with functionalist. You will always need to use the name of these two sociologists. Okay, so just a sec, I'll start this. Are we clear till here?
Yes, miss.
Okay, I'm just having water. Right, okay. So starting from Murdock, Murdock basically studied 250 societies, from small hunting and gathering societies to modern industrial countries such as the US. Small hunting and gathering societies are basically small communities that live in very small towns of countries and cities. So that's basically considered to be small, hunter and gatherers. They're called hunter and gatherers because they are considered to be the people who are nomads of some sort, the ones that hunt and then they gather and they just, they move, they're always on the move and they have their own community basically. So in all these societies, he claimed that the nuclear family was universal. Some form of it existed in every society. So Murdoch's point of view was that nuclear family was the most important type of family and that it existed within every aspect of family. Now, what the nuclear family is, the nuclear family in the definitive terms is two heterosexual parents. So one being a guy, one because they're heterosexual, one being a guy, one being a female, and with and having a maximum of two children. So that is basically a nuclear family, a small functional family that is the happiest because they live with each other. So there are other types of family which includes extended family, joint family, households, communals. All of these are types of families, but nuclear family is basically two heterosexual parents and their children. So that's a nuclear family. We all mostly nowadays, not nowadays, but like at least 10 years, 10 years back, everybody was, in a nuclear family. Now people are obviously more cohabitation because like nobody really marries, they live together, and there's a lot of single parent families now. So all of those trends have changed, but for the longest time nuclear family has always remained an ideal. So Murdoch said that this nuclear family, this perspective or this image of nuclear family is the most ideal, and it should and it does exist in every part of society, in everything in some sense or the other. So he said, Murdoch argued that all families fulfill four vital functions. So he said that every family has four vital functions that they fulfill, be it a nuclear family or anything beyond that. Even though he himself believed and said that nuclear family is a part of all families, but these families had four functions. The first one is sexual, the second is reproductive, third is educational, and fourth is economic. Sexual basically means that it is basically you people get attracted, okay, and they have this emotional bond between each other. They feel committed to each other, they have sexual intensity between each other, and that is what basically encourages them to have a family, encourages them to have a stable family. So marital sex creates a powerful emotional bond between a couple, encourages fidelity, and therefore commits the individual to family life. This encourages stable relationships, which helps maintain stability in society. So as they've said over here, that because of the fact that people are able to have a sexual relationship with one another, that basically grows their bond, their emotional bond, and they always want to stay close, which is why they might start a family. And that is the first function that a family will perform, which means that they will help stabilize an institution, they will help stabilize one another by through an emotional bond. The second function that a family performs is reproduction, that once a person, a guy and a guy and a girl marry each other, that is basically where they can begin their family as well. So that is basically where they can perform the function of reproduction and start their family. Nowadays, of course, it doesn't really have to be heterosexual parents. You have a lot of other options where you have surrogacy, you have adoption, and all of those things. But again, you have to consider this from Murdock's point of view, which was in the 1950s. So yeah, so he said that the second function that a family performs is reproduction, where they basically reproduce children, and they basically reproduce with one another and make children basically. Then the third one they said is that family, the third function that family performs is educational. How is that making sense? Educational in the sense that family is the one that that instills culture in human beings. So basically, they're talking about the primary socialization aspect of it, that through the family, a person feels educated, they know the norms and values of society, they learn the norms and values of society, they learn the language of society, they learn the way of society, which is basically the culture of society. So this is another part that the family is fulfilling, as they teach individuals the way of life, the way of society, which helps them survive in society. The fourth function, according to George, that the family performed was economic, which means that they basically helped with shelter, helped with food, helped with clothes. They basically provided you with the necessities that you require. So your three necessities, which is basically food, clothes, and shelter, this is basically something that is provided by the family. And as a result of this, the family also keeps the economy running. Who are the consumers? Families are the consumers. Hence, the economy also keeps running within a society due to the structure of the family. Are we clear?
Yes.
Amazing. That's Murdock. When we go ahead, we're looking at Parsons. Okay, Talcott Parsons. Again, he was also an American family sociologist, and he focused on the American family and argued that family has two important functions that cannot be performed by other institutions. So if we go back and look at Murdoch, we can say that yes, educational, or we can say that because look, educational is now something that can be performed by daycares as well. Or we can say that the economic function also is something that can be performed by the government as well. So we can say that there are these functions. I know ideal situation is that they are performed by the family, but there are other institutions which can perform this function. However, Parsons looked at American families as a whole, and he said that there are two things that nobody else can perform, no other institution can perform, only the family can perform. The first one is primary socialization, which I just explained to you. Um, Parsons believed that the family conducted this primary socialization, and it was in the most important years of one person's in one individual's life. It was the most important years of this person's life, and during these years he learns everything, and he learns how to view society. And this, when it's done at home, he also learns the stereotypical role, whereby they learn that the woman is supposed to be expressive and passive, and the men are supposed to be instrumental, where they're supposed to be stern and aggressive, and they're supposed to be the breadwinner of the household. So this is something that they learn through primary socialization, and that is what Talcott Parsons said, that no other person, no other institution can perform this function, because family is the only institution that can perform this function of primary socialization. Moving ahead, he said there's another function that no other institutions can perform except family, and that was the stabilization of adult personality. Now, I'm going to move sideways from the topic. We generally, here in our life, in our normal life, there are many instances where we say that, since his childhood, he was really disturbed. That is why he acts like this right now. So, this is a perspective that a lot of people hold, and this is something that a lot of people say, that you need therapy, or you need to cope with your mess, or you need to cope with the problems that you faced in your childhood. So your adult personality, or whatever happens to you in the future, is directly correlated to your adult personality. It is directly correlated to the stabilization of your adult personality. And that is what Parsons said, that this stabilization of adult personality, where you want to eliminate these things, where is only going to come from the family. Because if you live in a functional family, if you live in a family that loves you, cares for you, and it is an ideal situation, it is an ideal family that that will only prevent you from going through different things or traumatic experiences in your future. That will make you a good human being, that will make you a good adult that can survive in the family. So Parsons argued that the second specialized function of the family is the relief stresses of modern day life. This warm bath analogy, I'll explain the warm bath analogy, claims that family life stabilizes adult personalities. The family does this by providing a warm, loving home where adults can be them by themselves and relax. Now, basically this stabilization of adult personality is directly related to the warm bath analogy, which basically means that family is like a warm bath because they give you the warmth and the love and the wholesomeness that you require in order to relax and feel yourself. And that is exactly what a warm bath does to you as well. So, like a bubble bath does to you, they relax you, they stabilize you, they make you feel at peace. That is exactly what the family does as well, which follows through with you till your adult personality. The family does the emotional support and security within the family reduces stress from work and other activities outside the home and strengthens social stability. So this is an example that they've given. This is the warm bath theory that they've explained. Your work, your deadlines, your competition, pace of life, stress, overtime, promotion, money, all of these things are giving you, are, stressing your brain out, but then you come home and you take a warm bath and that fixes all of it, at least for a while. Similarly, that is exactly what family does. It takes away all your stress. Right. Are we clear till here?
Yes, miss.
Okay. Now we're looking at other now because we are holistically looking at family, so the functionalist perspective of family. We looked at the introduction, we looked at George Murdock, we looked at Alcott Parsons. We're now looking at other things that functionalists say about family. So functionalist theory emphasizes the integration and harmony between different parts of society and sees the family as the vital organ in maintaining the body of the society. Now this analogy is something that we have already discussed, that the society is a human body, and all the institutes or all the agencies of socialization or in all the institutes of society are the body parts, and family is the heart. Family is the most important organ of this particular body. This is something that we discussed when we were doing chapter 1. However, this view has been challenged in many ways. Functionalists painted also, the first thing that has been said is that functionalists paint a very, very, very rosy picture, and it doesn't really happen like that. You might go through a lot of trauma, and that is something that is not counted. Then there another thing, so they are basically now criticizing functionalist point of view. We had David Shield that points out that functional relationships can easily slip into dysfunctional relationships and therefore not as harmonious as functionalists believe them to be. So what functionalists say is basically, let's say if something is functional doesn't mean it will remain functional for the rest of their lives. Something that is functional might as well turn to be very, very dysfunctional, so you can't really say that. Another thing is that functionalist views on family are based on white middle class and American families. They do not consider ethnicity, religion, class influence, and the different types. So basically, if you look at your normal family, yes, that would be a nuclear family, and yes, that would be providing primary socialization and stabilization of adult personality and the warm bath theory, that they would take away all the stress and everything. But if you look at a family that is, let's say, from the working class, that is poor, where the mom is also working, the dad is also working, what happens there? There is no major primary socialization happening there. There is no major stabilization happening there. There is no warm bath over there. They're all just, trying to survive. So this whole perspective, the whole functionalist perspective is based upon a stabilized family, but they are not keeping into consideration families that are not from this sector, or not from this status, and they are facing totally different things. Another thing is Murdock and Parsons research may no longer be relevant in contemporary society. So this is something that I've already told you, that this is something that was happening in 1950s. They were speaking about this in 1950s. Right now, things have changed completely, like a 360 opposite turn. For them, a nuclear family was two heterosexual parents and their children. Right now, it could be two homosexual parents and having no children, and they could call themselves a family, or adopting children. So it is not, the function is not always reproduction. The function is not always having a nuclear family now. It can be two homophobic parents who, sorry, two homosexual parents who adopt kids, and that means that they haven't performed the function of reproduction, or they haven't really, they are not both heterosexual parents, so they're not exactly nuclear family, but that is it, that is the standard of family. So it has changed a lot, and it cannot be implemented here. Another thing, another criticism that I'm going to tell you, beyond what has been given over here, is there is this perspective called the cereal packet family. Cereal as the one like cornflake cereal. So this also was introduced, and it was said that this was also a criticism, that functionalists present a very serial packet image of the family, and it is not realistic at all. Now, what the serial packet image means, when you look at advertisements, the most common advertisement, even before Ramadan, we get so many of these advertisements, but the most common advertisement is that there are two parents, there are two children, and maybe there are grandparents, and they're all eating on the dining table. So be it a juice ad, be it a tea ad, be it any ad. So this is what is presented through media as well, right? And that is basically a serial package image of the family. Why? Because even if it's a serial ad, so that's where it came from. That even if it's a serial ad, the family that is presented in that serial ad is basically two heterosexual parents, mom and dad, their children, and maybe grandparents, and that is basically presented, and that is something that people will then indulge in, and that is something that people will then look up to. So that is known as the serial package image of the family, which means that in a serial package advertisement, like they have presented the family, similarly functionalists also present the family in the same way, as something that is attainable and that is so sweet and that is happening, but it is not truly like that. Are we clear?
Yes, miss.
Okay. Right, I am going to start with functions of the family from the Marxist and the feminist perspective. We'd already completed functionist perspective, but I'm just going to do it in 2 minutes. I'm going to go get myself some water.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I'm back. Right. So, looking at the functions of family, which is Marxist and feminist from the Marxist and feminist perspective, um, different sociologists emphasize and explain society in different ways. This is also the case when looking at the functions of the family. Functionist theory is just one theory, and Marxist and feminist are the next ones. Marxist theory on the functions of family. Marxists look at the family contributes to the maintenance of society structure. Before I get into the topic, I'm just going to summarize it a little bit for you. Marxists, as they say, that everything is serving the capitalist. So similarly, that's what they say about families as well, that families are also serving the capitalist because they are the consumers and they consume stuff which leads them to buying stuff and obviously and then basically that increases production, and when that increases production that will require working class to work harder, and that would require the capitalist people to keep getting richer. So they say that families are part of the they part of contributing to the capitalist society, that they promote capitalism and they contribute to the capitalist society. And what Marxists do is they do not take into account the fact that working class are also families. But yeah, that's one major fault that they do. But they're talking about middle class families, and they say that middle class families are basically serving the capitalist as well as consumer units. Okay, right. So Marxists look at the how the family contributes to the maintenance of society structure. However, unlike functionalists, Marxists do not regard the nuclear family as as a functioning necessary institution for the society to work. So they say that nuclear families are not important. So basically, what functions said that nuclear families are compulsory, but then over here, Marxists are saying that no, they are not compulsory. Marxists see the family within the framework of capitalist society, which is based on private property, driven by profit, and involves conflict between social class and opposing interests. So that's what they're saying, that Marxists look at family from the perspective of a capitalist society. Right. So they say that the families perform a lot of functions for the capitalist. Families are seen as consumer units as they buy products for their family. For example, family cars, houses, family boxes, bags of food, large televisions, and so on. Capitalism needs consumers to buy its products. And basically, as I just explained, that they are consumer units because they are families, they obviously require a lot of things to consume and survive. And when they do, when they have all of those things, they basically serve the capitalist in turn of those things. That is what Marxists say, that families provide capitalism in this way. The other thing that they're saying is capitalism as a problem remains unchallenged when families effectively become competitive units fighting over resources such as school places, housing, and childcare. So they're saying that when there is competition over such things, which obviously come about after families increase. So once family increase, obviously there will be more need of schools, there will be a more need of daycares, there will be more need of housing. So when all of these things happen, there's a lot of competition that happens in markets for these things, and when this happens, obviously the prices go up as well, and the working class is exploited, but then the rich keep getting richer, which means that the family is supporting capitalists and serving the capitalist as well. So that's another thing that they're saying, that they're talking about private property. So private property is an important asset to the nuclear family, and by passing it on, families can build wealth over generations. Until the 1880s, women could not own and control property, so historically, men would pass their wealth on to their sons. However, this also meant that woman became the property of her husband, who controlled her sexuality to ensure he was the father of her children. This reproduced gender inequality as well as the social class system. Women can now inherit property, but on the same terms as men, which has helped reduce gender inequality. But families still seek to acquire as much private property as possible over generations. Another thing that they're saying here is that because families want to pass on wealth throughout generations, they own a lot of private property. And what happens then is that initially what they said was that this was a cause of gender inequality, because families used to own private property, but then women could not own this private property. It could not have been passed down to women. So it was always passed down to the son of the family. It was passed down to the son, and that basically raised gender inequality, that actually increased gender inequality, and that is something that is not exactly ideal. That's what these the Marxists used to say, that it also contributes in increasing gender inequality. They're talking about family. The process of primary socialization in the family reproduces and maintains class inequalities. Marxists claim that the family is one way to maintain and reinforce a set of ideas, which in turn maintain a capitalist society. So it's pretty much the same thing that they're saying that because families perform the function of primary socialization, so in the primary socialization as well, what they teach is that they teach the other coming generations or the current generations to serve the capitalists. So in whatever, if you look at your dad and he is going to the office, so again you are tended to do the same thing. You will probably be motivated to do the same thing because you have looked at that all your life. So that means that through when you're having your primary socialization years and whatever you're looking at, you are more likely to do the same thing. So if your parents are serving the capitalist society, you are also more likely to do the same thing, which is very true. So again, your primary socialization function is serving the capitalist society only because it is reiterating or reinvesting the idea of serving the capitalist society. So parents are basically teaching you how to serve the capitalist society. Families also support capitalism by providing unpaid labor by reproducing. So as the population increases, as children increase, obviously there is more labor for the capitalist society. And this is very true, even though it does sound something like, oh my god, it's not that extreme, but it is, in the sense that if you look at companies such as Samsung, if you look at companies such as Unilever, Nestle, all of these companies, so obviously they still require labor, and mostly it is what the first thing that they do is, if someone is retiring, the first thing that they prefer is that someone from the same family comes and works for them. This is what happens internally. So that is something that obviously when you once your father actually teaches you, okay, okay, you know what, this is something, you can be, I am doing, so you can do as well. So yeah, there you go. That is when you actually start doing the same thing and ultimately serving the capitalist. So is this clear till now?
Yes.
Okay. Criticisms of the Marxist theory. The idea that men marry and have children to pass on property ignores the other reasons for getting married. So they're saying the only reason why a person would marry is not to serve the capitalist. Relax, it might be for love as well. So that's one thing. Also, inheritance and tax. So they're saying that inheritance is not through private property only. There are other ways of inheritance. So that is not something that is a very legitimate excuse. The idea that families exist to pass on ruling class ideas ignores other things that go on in family. So they're saying that you are ignoring the fact that there are other things that go on in family, which is basically love, care. So this is something that is required as well, and that is something that happens in the families as well, but you're so focused on looking at what it does for the ruling class. Marxism could also be seen as over negative, which means that they are playing down the benefits of the family. So they're not looking at the benefits of the families, they're only looking at the negatives of the family and the way it serves the capitalist society, but not looking at other functions that it fulfills that might as well also help the working class. So if you are a working class family, if your family pushes you to just do something great, you might as well just push through the barriers and become middle class and beat the capitalists. So what about those things? Then they're saying the importance of families cannot be understood by class and inheritance of wealth alone. Classical Marxism ignores such things such as gender relations and cultural factors like religion, etc. So they're saying that you can't really say that families happen because of class and inheritance and they pass those things down, but you have to look at the fact that they also promote other things such as gender equality. Because in the sense, let's say for example, if there is a stabilized family where both the parents are dual working parents and they share and all of those things, that will promote gender equality. So again, they are basically overruling all the benefits of families and they're looking at the negatives of family, and they're saying that you're over exaggerating. Then another thing they're saying is that the only function of family is not to serve the ruling class. You are not looking at other reasons as to why people might as well marry. And the last thing is that they're forgetting the fact that even working class have families as well. So what about those families? Those are not, again, they are not purposely serving the ruling class. They're against that as well. So why are you not taking those into consideration? Right. So that was your Marxist perspective. I'm not going to do the feminist perspective right now. Even though it's pretty basic, they just talk about how mothers are not expressive and passive. They can be more than that, and the males do not always have to be the breadwinner. But we're just gonna read it in the next class, and then we're gonna start family forms, which is mostly how, like, quarter of the chapter is just this. Make sense?
Yes, makes sense.
Okay. So right now you are free to go. Thanks for letting me switch timings today.
No
I really
worries.
had to go somewhere, and I
Um,
will see you tomorrow. Yeah,
Miss, is
please go ahead.
my dad had a few questions about English language. Is it okay if he can talk to you?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, for sure.
Okay, 1 second. Let me just call him. Okay, Miss, here.
Hi. Is it Musfira?
Hi, Assalamu alaikum. Yes, this is
Walaikum
Musfira.
assalam. I'm Jawad, father of Saleha. Good to hear from you. Thank you very much for all your efforts. We are really happy that Saleha is, getting good tuition from your side. So I just have
Alhamdulillah.
a
Thank you
quick
so much.
question. Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. Actually, so for English language, now Saleh have a couple of options. One option is that she stays here in Dubai because Dubai, Cambridge, which you mentioned that Saleh is doing Cambridge. So for Cambridge exams, they are having exams in November.
Right, yeah.
Okay, but it may not be possible for us to do the exam in November because most probably we'll be moving to the UK in early October. So we have checked in the UK what possibilities are for the Cambridge exam. So they said their exam is in October, 13th of October and 16th of October, two papers. And the next exam will be in May, June, not in January, February for Cambridge. So now my
Right, yeah.
question was, what do you think of Salia's preparation? Whether she will be doing such kind of, rush exams in October? Is she somehow ready, or do you think that it will take some more time for Salia to grasp all the things?
Okay, so basically there's, just to give you a little background, there's two components. There's paper one and paper two, right? So with
Okay.
paper one, there's two sections, and with paper two, there's two sections. So currently where we stand is that we're done with paper one.
Okay.
So we, all that's left for us to do is paper two, which is basically comprehensions that does not require preparation, it requires practice. So that is something that, even let's say if Salia comes to class and I give her a whole overview and the whole guideline, that is something that Salia can sit till 3 a.m. and do herself as well, because that is basically, she is reading a passage and answering from that passage. So
I
that
see.
again requires practice, then preparation. So that is something that even if she takes 10 days out of her month and do one every day, she'll be good to go. The one thing that technically and realistically that is left is summary writing, which I told Salia as well that we can do over the month. So I would say that yes, as someone who has been teaching her for the last 4 months, she is ready to give it in October as well.
I see. Good. But how she is overall doing in English? I mean, what is your feedback?
So my feedback, okay, so basically, obviously, it takes her a little while to grasp, but then we practice a lot. Alhamdulillah,
Mhm.
we've got enough time. We had enough time to practice a lot. So when she keeps doing the same thing again and again, she actually ends up doing it exactly the way I would perceive her to do, or the ideal way, basically. So if we start a new topic, for the
Mhm.
first three tries, it won't be something that's easy for her to grasp, but then it's not something that she doesn't improve upon. So she keeps improving upon what she's doing.
Okay, so it has been my concern over the past few months, or that I think maybe this impression may not be, realistic. But I think that Salia has to practice a lot in her English writing skills, and maybe she needs to work this a lot. Do you think that Salia is somewhere, I mean, at a good stage of writing, or she still needs whole, it's a, you know, take much time to practice this, or she's good, she's a good better level than
I
before
would
in
say
terms of
she
writing?
is, yeah. So if I talk about specifically writing, the thing is with Salia, her mind is very creative. So the ideas that she gets, they're very nice. but then
Good.
what is the difficulty comes when she has to put them into words. So
Yes.
the expressiveness, that is where she has a little bit of a problem. But
Yes.
that is something that I have progressively seen improving in her, because
Yes.
even if you read some of her demo essays right now that we do in class, she has been able to express better. So but
Yes.
the only problem that as of right now, that's something that we still are working upon, is her sentence structure. That is the
Yes.
only thing that I see needs improvement, and that is something we do keep improving with our practices. But other than that, as far as putting it on paper and writing down what she wants to, she is improving upon that. As I said, like once she understands her assignment, she does do it well. She does try to do it the best way that she can based on her capabilities. So I would still say that
Good.
yeah,
Yeah.
she is at a very progressively good level as of right now.
No, that's good. That's good to hear. I will just request that if you can just keep on, because I think the quantity of writing. I mean, sometimes she ran short of the words, and sometimes her paragraph writing is, for example, if I ask her to write 2 paras, she'll be only able to write in the beginning. Maybe now she has improved 1 para. So the quantity, the numbers, the word number of words. Of course, the structure also comes first, but I think the
Yeah,
structure comes after, once she's able to write lots, and then she can make improve her structure as well. So if she can,
totally.
yeah.
I
So
agree with
so from your feedback, I understood that she's also ready for November, but as well as if she thinks she can also take the exams in October.
Yeah, for sure. Because I just need, like, we need this week to complete our paper one thing. So we will have a good month to complete our paper two, which I think is enough, as I said, because paper one, paper two is basically comprehension, which is
Good.
something that requires practice more than preparation. It's no new concepts, it's just reading and answering
Okay.
questions. So that's
Because
just
why we
more
are
practice.
yes. Because why we are focusing on it in October, November, because if she loses this chance, then of course she has to do this English language and English literature in next year, May, June. So I am asking her, okay, try to take the exam, one of the exams, language, this
Yeah,
time,
yeah, yeah.
then literature she will be able to prepare. So yeah, I understood what you're saying. So hopefully let's see what we decide. But Alhamdulillah, now I am hopeful that and confident that Saleh will be able to take.
Inshallah. She'll do
Inshallah.
great. Inshallah. Don't
So
worry.
nice of you. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, miss.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye bye. Allah Hafiz.
Bye.